You can choose one species to go extinct, what that would be. But you have to pick one species. I'd be torn between Ixodes vector of Lyme, anaplasmosis, babesiosis, and Powassan, Thermocenter variabilis, vector of RMSF and tularemia, or Embloma americanum, vector of TBRF, tularemia, and ehrlichiosis. I had lice twice growing up. The first time it was all fine, treated with the doctor-prescribed shampoo. The second time, we couldn't get rid of them, wash everything over and over. Eventually I had to sit there for literally 12 hours while my mom cut off every hair that had an egg that she could find. The horrible weeks leading up to that decision were brutal. When I went to get my hair done later, the hairdresser wouldn't shut up about the fact that I had a lot of short hairs growing in, something she'd never seen before. Very embarrassing for a middle school kid. Anyway, fuck lice. The amount of paranoia they cause is insane. But a roommate who had them, or at least he was convinced he had him, he was already a bit of hypochondriac before this, made us basically overturn the whole house and bug bomb it, amongst some other stuff. I'm still not sure if he really had them, as the rest of us roommates never saw any compelling evidence, but we all just went along with it, because, A, don't no one want to risk that shit, and B, roommate who supposedly had them was going absolutely crazy. Oh Mel. I had them for a whole fucking year 2 years ago, and the feeling of them crawling over you while you're trying to sleep still makes me shiver to this day. I looked around my bed frame once and saw literally hundreds of them. Some were bloated with my blood, and the image honestly scared me. Jesus Christ. If you have them, don't waste time with small off-the-shelf fixes. Get professional help ASAP. They become an infestation so faster, and it's the most awful experience I've ever had in my home. I will say from someone who had dealt with them, about a year ago I was moving out of my townhome that we've been in for just over a year. It started with my wife would have a mark on her arm here and there. Didn't think much of it. This went on for a few months. Never saw any bugs. Then my dog that sleeps with us started getting a bad rash, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And one day during the peak of craziness of COVID, my wife said she killed 2 bugs, and she took a picture of one and sent it to me. The fact of bed bugs never crossed her mind. I looked them up and I was like, oh fuck, and kept my mouth shut until I got home and I told her, and she broke down crying. We are by no means dirty people. Looked up bed bug bites on dogs, and it looked exactly like what mine had. So began the battle with my apartment complex, them charging us double rent to terminate lease and them claiming it was from us. So we stayed with her parents after washing all of our clothes, and we threw so much shit away: bedside tables, bed, desks, hutches, plants, a couch, chairs, and anything we could bake in the oven at 120 for 10 minutes we could, such as pictures, any miscellaneous items, and anything else we sprayed with alcohol. Fun fact, that kills them in eggs and larvae on site. I tested it. We realistically lost thousands in stuff we had to throw away, and anything we couldn't take with us to my mother-in-law's are in a storage unit to this day, with diatomaceous earth sprinkled on the floor just in case there happened to be a stray bed bug. I will say, the absolute worst experience of my life, and never ever want to have to deal with anything like that again. So yes, I wish they were extinct. I have seen bed bugs take over one floor of a hostel that I managed in less than 48 hours. After we recognized that they were bed bugs on the initial bunk that a guest brought to our attention, we moved all guests out of that room, 8-bunk room, and sprayed all bunks including the non-infected. This happened in the morning. By the next morning they had taken over the entire room, the room next to it, and were on their way to the third. I spent the next day replacing every wooden bunk in this 40-bunk hostel. This is what I did to get rid of bed bugs. Threw out the mattress, washed what I couldn't put into dryer, other items put in the freezer, sprayed furniture with cider salt. Then I put mothballs outside of the doorway. Then I covered the room with diatomaceous earth. I made a trap with a styrofoam cup with 2 straws out of the sides pointing down in a bowl. Have pieces of cloth draping the side of bowl. Put dry ice in cup. Put diatomaceous earth in bowl. When dry ice melts it turns to CO2, luring the bed bugs. The diatomaceous earth then cuts the bed bugs, shielding they dry out and die. Bed bugs will hide in the smallest cracks so the CO2 makes them come out. My aunt had bed bugs in her house, so I put my bed's legs into cups of oil to catch them so they could not climb up onto the bed and get me. These little fuckers climbed up the wall, onto the ceiling, and dropped down like a fucking Bomberman to get at me. I never went to her house again. Hoping to see this answer. These jerks were all over my backyard and deck this summer, and my brain can't stop after I kill a bunch. So I'm out there for a couple of hours just killing all of them, and then I have to go inside because my outside time is ruined and I'm crabby. Spotted lanternflies, not people. I don't have this kind of compulsion for people. I feel I need to clarify because Reddit. You beat me to it. I hate these fuckers. I've never been one to flip out over bugs, but the spotted lanternfly absolutely creeps me TF out. They will fly right on you, on your neck, face, hair, etc., and that just bugs me out bad. Pun intended. I live in South Jersey and the summer was so bad with them. They were all over my balcony every single day and I refuse to even go out there anymore. No pesticide works to keep them away either, that I've tried anyway, but rubbing alcohol kills them immediately. I kept it in a spray bottle and used it going to from my car the last few months. That's how bad they were. Completely littered the ground outside of my apartment building, constantly on my tires, door handle, trunk, etc. I was coming out of Kohl's one day and saw one fly directly onto this older woman's neck and watched her have a meltdown in the parking lot. I felt bad, but nope, TF out of there. I felt like I was in some zombie apocalypse but with a lanternflies lol. Hey, you want to hear the grossest story ever about botflies? Edit. Actually probably mangoworms, which I didn't realize were different but pretty similar. So I was living in West Africa for a few years, and while I was there, I adopted a pet monkey. I know, you're not supposed to, but she had already been in captivity from a neighbor for a while and they were going to eat her, so whatever. This is not the point. She slept in a tree next to my mud hut and we were best friends. Went on bike rides together while she sat on the handlebars. We'd go foraging for fruit in the woods. She loved ear and forehead rubs. Good fun. One time I noticed this weird sore on her arm, so I poked it and I saw something moving inside. Not knowing what it was, but on sheer instinct, I squeezed and the little worm popped its head out. I asked some neighbors and they told me that yeah, it's a botfly larva, also called mangoworms or tombos. I asked what do you do about them? They said well, you can spray some stuff on them like they do for their cattle, or you can pick them out one by one, or you can leave them in there and the animal's going to die a painful death. Well, I didn't want to spray stuff on my little baby monkey friends, so I decided to see if there were more to pick out. Yeah, there were a lot more. I don't know how I hadn't noticed, but there were literally like 30 of those little holes all over her, some tiny and some pretty big, and she would calmly wait while I squeezed with my fingers and pulled out each wiggling larva with tweezers one by one. There was a clear look of gratitude in her eyes, but the grossest part, each one I pulled out, she would snatch out of my hand and stuff it in her mouth and gulp them down. Because monkeys, I guess, like grubs. Slimy yet satisfying, so I'm pulling these flesh-eating bugs out of her skin, and she's in turn eating them. I don't know how I didn't vomit that day. pretty sure I had before that a study concluded the extinction of mosquitoes would actually improve biodiversity world-round as the numbers of other animal species would grow, and turns out mosquitoes aren't all that important a food source, so this is the answer: death to mosquitoes. Lice, fleas or bed bugs, they're both just so hard to get rid of if you're unlucky enough to have an infestation. I moved into some nice luxury apartments in DFW in October. Everything was fine until March, when out of nowhere I suddenly started getting little bites all over my feet and ankles. I naively thought maybe I had just trekked them in, so I thought just vacuuming the affected room would be enough. Little did I know that the previous tenant had a full-blown infestation. Even after I realized the problem was way worse than expected, I still didn't jump right to the flea bombs or even sprays. I had a 1-month-old baby. I didn't want all that poison around her, so instead I spent 2 months trying every natural remedy possible: salt, soapy water dishes, daily vacuuming, cedarwood oil, diatomaceous earth. I removed everything from the floor except large furniture. I threw away all of my rugs, washed all of my linens, even curtains and stuff hanging in the closets, and then kept everything in plastic bags up away from the floors. I went through 3 vacuums, spent hundreds, injured my back because I was still weak from having a C-section, endured so many flea bites that my toes were swollen and red, lost sleep. I finally caved and decided to buy carpet spray after 2 months. It still took 3 applications over a month and a half, plus abandoning the carpeted rooms for a month to all did it to sit undisturbed. I finally defeated them after almost 4 months. I didn't realize that it had been from the previous tenant until 2 months later, when I decided it was safe to steam clean the carpets so my daughter could learn to crawl. The steam brought out the smell of wet dog. I don't have a dog. Then I remembered there was one corner in particular that always had dozens of fleas in the trap, when the others only had a few. I'm guessing that's where the dog slept. Plus, fleas can carry parasitic worms and bubonic plague. Biologist here: to anyone saying or upvoting mosquitoes, you are absolutely right. Fuck those pieces of shit bugs. I hope they all die. Edit: I'm a neurobiologist, completely irrelevant to mosquitoes, but still, as technically a biologist, you can take my word for it that we'd all be better off if all those annoying bitey fuckers were eating their way to the pits of hell. About 10 years ago I got really interested in finding out what would happen if mosquitoes went extinct. At the time science was not decided. Some scientists believed it would just be a small disruption to the food chain, while other scientists thought it would cause catastrophic reverberations across the food chain. I believe their main concern was what would happen to certain fish populations. Do you know if that's changed at all? Scabies mites. Honestly, of all the medical crap I have done, scabies was the most unbearable. The itching alone sent me halfway to a breakdown, and the mental issues I still have from it, compounded by PTSD from just having a very traumatic baby experience. It was a nightmare. Not the most deadly by any means, not even all that dangerous physically, but mentally I nearly lost my life to those little things. My mother caught scabies in the late 60s when she worked for the government. She started having symptoms at work and someone else realized what it was. She was escorted from the building, out the back door, by 4 security guards. While she is standing outside, still a bit shocked, the guards come back out, wearing gloves and carrying her desk, chair and typewriter. They set fire to it all in the car park. Apparently government departments took health issues more seriously back then. Been there, had that. 15 years ago, got an itchy psoriasis outbreak last year. I was paranoid at being scabies, never been so relieved as when it was just psoriasis. Worst thing was that scabies is so uncommon in Norway today the doctors failed to diagnose it. I had to self-diagnose with the help of the internet, then go back to the doctor who was thoroughly confused, then got the cream to kill them off. Then it was still a month of itching before all the leftovers had shedded out of my skin. Fuck scabies mites. Lots of great and arguably more important answers here, but this was definitely my first thought. Living in Southern California means that the summers are brutal. Which means that I'm constantly cranking the AC. Which means that these foodheads think they have an open invitation into my home anytime I open the door because it's cooler. I fucking hate them. Bonus points to fat flies for being especially disgusting. Nothing worse than their loud ass buzz and then having them be so fucking fat you can hear them bumping into shit. The only perk is they're the easiest to kill. Fuck flies. Flies. Fucking flies. Pieces of shit can't leave me alone or in peace for 2 goddamn seconds. I'd say mosquitoes, but at least they're slow enough to kill. Meanwhile flies seem to be able to see into the fucking future, seeing as 99% of the time. It's fucking impossible to hit the shitheads. Plus, mosquitoes leave you alone when they're done, not flies. They stick around, and the bastards will do the only thing they're good for, which is annoy you to the end of time. If I could, I would grab every fly in existence, and lock them in a chamber, and slowly fill it with poisonous gas, so I can watch as the life slowly fades out of the bastards, and their pointless existence is wiped off the face of the earth, and then, just for good measure, I set what's left of them on fire. Fleas. I can't take fleas. What even is their given purpose? Just years ago we had a flea infestation. My cat brought them in. We treated him, but they were everywhere. Under the beds, on the carpets, all of them, in the bathroom where there's no carpet. My goodness, nothing would kill them. No amount of whacking or product that could have killed us with the amounts we use of so many variations. Alas, after a summer of wanting to be dead came fateful winter. Somehow the sheer thought of winter killed them all off. They were gone by the end of it. Must have been the cold. The horror though, how numerous they could become from all flights of the house. Reassuring because it's fucking true. Koalas are fucking horrible animals. They have one of the smallest brain-to-body ratios of any mammal. Additionally, their brains are smooth. A brain is folded to increase the surface area for neurons. If you present a koala with leaves plucked from a branch, laid on a flat surface, the koala will not recognize it as food. They are too thick to adapt their feeding behavior to cope with change. In a room full of potential food, they can literally starve to death. This is not the token of an animal that is winning at life. Speaking of stupidity and food, one of the likely reasons for their primitive brains is the fact that additionally to being poisonous, eucalyptus leaves, the only thing they eat, have almost no nutritional value. They can't afford the extra energy to think. They sleep more than 80% of their fucking lives. When they are awake all they do is eat shit and occasionally scream like fucking Satan. Because eucalyptus leaves hold such little nutritional value, koalas have to ferment the leaves in their guts for days on end. Unlike their brains, they have the largest hindgut-to-body ratio of any mammal. Many herbivorous mammals have adaptations to cope with harsh plant life taking its toll on their teeth. Rodents for instance have teeth that never stop growing. Some animals only have teeth on their lower jaw, grinding plant matter on bony plates in the tops of their mouths. Others have enlarged molars that distribute the wear and break down plant matter more efficiently. Koalas are no exception. When their teeth erode down to nothing, they resolve the situation by starving to death, because they're fucking terrible animals. Being mammals, koalas raise their joeys on milk, admittedly, one of the lowest milk yields to body ratio. There's a trend here. When the young joey needs to transition from rich, nourishing substances like milk, to eucalyptus, a plant that seems to be making it abundantly clear that it doesn't want to be eaten, it finds it does not have the necessary gut flora to digest the leaves. To remedy this, the young joey begins nuzzling its mother's anus until she leaks a little diarrhea. actually fecal pap, slightly less digested, which he then proceeds to slurp on. This partially digested plant matter gives him just what he needs to start developing his digestive system. Of course, he may not even have needed to bother nuzzling his mother. She may have been suffering from incontinence. Why? Because koalas are riddled with chlamydia. In some areas the infection rate is 80% or higher. This statistic isn't helped by the fact that one of the few other activities koalas will spend their precious energy on is rape. Despite being seasonal breeders, males seem to either not know or care, and will simply overpower a female regardless of whether she is ovulating. If she fights back, he may drag them both out of the tree, which brings us full circle back to the brain. Koalas have a higher than average quantity of cerebrospinal fluid in their brains. This is to protect their brains from injury should they fall from a tree. An animal so thick it has its own little built-in special head helmet. I fucking hate them. TLDR, koalas are stupid, leaky, STI-riddled sex offenders. But, hey, they look cute, if you ignore the terrifying snake eyes and terrifying feet.